My esteemed colleague, Justice Chandrachud, the Honorable Chief Justice of the Bombay High Court, Dr. Chellur, the Attorney General for India, the President of the Bombay Bar, other office bearers of the bar, Mr. Thakkar, Mr. Saraf, distinguished judges of the Bombay High Court, former judges of the Bombay High Court, the two Chief Justices from Allahabad and Punjab, distinguished former Chief Justices, my former Chief Justices, Justice C.K. Thakkar, Justice Dave, Justice B.P. Singh, Justice Shah, distinguished former judges of the Supreme Court, the Acting Advocate General for Bombay, the former Advocates General of Bombay, the Additional Solicitor General, Mr. Singh, distinguished senior advocates, distinguished members of the bar, and Shri Ram Jetwalani and Shri Avinash Rana. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an incomparable pleasure and privilege to be here with you this morning. When I was given a farewell by the Bombay Bar, I said there are two kinds of people: those who bring happiness wherever they go, and those who bring happiness whenever they go. Today, I must point out this great ability of the Bombay Bar to make everybody feel they are in the first category. Thank you for the warm welcome. In fact, after about 15 and a half, 16 years on the bench, after what Mr. Sathe and Justice Chandrachud spoke, I had a very strong feeling that I should simply get up and say, I agree. I do agree, but I would want to say a few things. This is a great occasion. It is rare for any association to claim that it has been in existence for 150 years with such distinguished service to the nation, service to the profession. To have sustained itself over so long requires a considerable fortitude of the body of association members and those at its helm. Many instances have been pointed out by Mr. Sathe, Justice Chandrachud, and others. I would not repeat them. I have not been a member of this bar, I never got a chance to, and I never got a chance to say no either, because I was not here. But just consider what a remarkable period of history that a century and a half has been. The association was born at the time of Queen Victoria. A few years after the association was formed, she was proclaimed Empress of India. There then followed 2 world wars, the epic struggle for independence, and the birth of this nation is an event never far away from memory in this court. With that stirring transition from Sir Leonard Stone to Chief Justice Chagla at midnight in the High Court's magnificent Central Court. And then, yes, let us not forget the years that followed, which were in their own way years of struggle. The period of emergency, which has been mentioned, when this court and the association stood proud in defense of those freedoms we hold so dear today. Let me tell you my experience, the conclusion I've drawn after these years at the bar and the bench. There is no such thing as an independent judiciary without an independent bar. I'll give you an instance of what makes judges independent and strong. This is an instance in which the Bombay bar was involved, but it concerns a judge from Nagpur. Vivian Bose presided over the Mundra Commission. And when the report was tabled, the Prime Minister said on the floor of the House, no intelligent man could have arrived at these conclusions. There was an eruption of protests, mainly the Calcutta bar, the Bombay bar, and the Nagpur bar, condemning the statement on the floor of the House. And to the credit of the Prime Minister, in the next session, he said, Vivian Bose lacks nothing, certainly not intelligence. This did not, I assume, make only Justice Bose feel secure, but it made all those who knew this feel secure and gave them the necessary strength to carry on independently. There are many other incidents which I don't wish to go into, they've already been gone into. But what contributes to independence is something which is unique about this bar, what contributes to the independence of the judiciary is the institution of chambers. You are so familiar with it that you might not know that there is any other way. But I've been traveling all over the country. I see the institution of chambers dwindling. And you all know the tremendous learning experience it is to be with your senior in a chamber. You learn the law, you learn the nuances of the law. You learn about the independence of the judiciary. You know how to respectfully withstand a bully from the bench. You know how you can be forceful without being disrespectful. And you know ultimately what is right, even if you've lost. These are things which I believe are learnt in the chamber. And I don't know whether it is enough to say this on this occasion, but we must wake up to this, that this institution of chambers itself is dwindling, and it has some deleterious effects. In fact, even in the Supreme Court, the other day I found that the Attorney General was standing behind and one junior went in the front and kept on mentioning something irrelevant. He didn't know how to mention a matter in court. And believe me, there is no law school which teaches this. And nobody will teach this to you unless he's your senior. This institution, which has gone on from centuries for over 150 years, is what I believe is the greatest strength of the Bombay Bar. The bar evolved from, and you know how it evolved. There's a bar of practicing barristers before the Recorder's Court in 1798. The Supreme Court was inaugurated on 8th May 1824. This bar came to be called the Bombay Bar Association in or around 1920. The number of firsts to his credit, Mr. Sathe has mentioned, I will not go into it. But there's another thing which I think this bar stands for. And I think it would not be an unacceptable exaggeration to say that the idea of India was formed in this association by its members. This may not be true simply because of the very many persons who contributed each in his own way to that idea. But I do not believe it is the slightest exaggeration to say that of all the associations in the country, it is this association, it is in this association that the seeds of idea were first sown, along maybe with Calcutta and Madras. It could not have been otherwise. This association members were amongst the greatest forces to determine the destiny of this nation and to shape its future. It is in this court, as members of this association, that they made their livelihood, their careers, their reputation. And I say, the law of this country. I say that they made the law of this country based on Professor Hon'ble's description of advocacy. He says it involves creating and changing perceptions to influence the result. And this is how lawyers, advocates make law. In fact, if you look at some of the judgments of the Supreme Court, particularly in recent times, including this Constitution bench, it seems as if the matter was resolved by Sirvai. He's so extensively quoted by those who agree and those who disagree with him. But it's incredible that something written so long ago with such care is influencing the results of the Supreme Court today. And this is a tribute to the Bombay Bar. You know, Sir John Beaumont said this about the bar. And I'm quoting this apart from the various quotations I have read about the Bombay bar, because Sir John Beaumont had the great advantage of not only being a Chief Justice here, but he was also a member of the Privy Council and not an Indian. He said on the original side, and he said this about this bar, the standard of advocacy amongst the leaders are really very high, and many juniors showed great promise. In later years, I was sitting in the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council. There used to appear before us in heavy cases the cream of the English bar. And you know what that meant. But I often thought that the leaders of the Bombay bar would not have been outclassed. I would add, not outclassed anywhere, even in the wild. There's a story which Justice Gautam Patel pointed out to me about inferiorities hunting when inferiority went out hunting in Africa. Apparently, he shot at a lioness. He went with his guns and his camera. He shot at a lioness badly. She charged on him, got him under her paws, and would have been killed but for the two Somalis who were with him and who shot him, shot the lioness dead, and saved inferiority. The interesting thing is that this news item appears in a newspaper of, I think, the New York Times of 1898 or something. The newspaper says, no doubt her attention was concentrated on the Bombay barrister by the strangeness of his aspect and the pertinacity with which he stalked her in the first instance, and gave her the impression that he, of all three, was her most dangerous foe. This is the tenacity of the Bombay bar. And you know, he came back, he didn't come back without photographing that lion. He took some very good pictures, washed himself with carbolic acid, went to Aden and came back to Bombay. There's an interesting thought. It's not easy to separate the great names associated with this court from the membership of this association. It might not be even wise and advisable to do this. The other day when I was speaking in Bombay on the appellate side function, I realized that that list itself could not be read. This list is even more difficult to deal with. In fact, I found it difficult even to select the names. But then there are those who shone in public life. So Firoz Shah Mehta, Bhula Bhai Desai, K.M. Munshi, an incredible range of books he has authored. I believe 40 in the Gujarati language only. And his works on the Mahabharata, Krishna Avatar is incredible and such beautifully written. The best were in the forefront in public life, Sir Chimanlal Setalwad, said K.M. Munshi, B.G. Kher, a solicitor. Then, of course, the names of Sir Jamshedji Kanga, Sir Nasirwanji, engineer, Motilal Setalwad. H.M. Sirvai, Nani Palkhiwala, S.P. Gupte are names which are permanently etched in the memories of people. The incidents which I thought was the most remarkable, not that others were less significant, was how this bar supported the independence of the judiciary. At the time, it protested against the appointment of Sir Leonard Stone, something which was mentioned to you earlier. But I do not believe that this is necessarily a good practice, in the sense that sometimes, I'm not saying it about the Bombay bar, I've noted some instances when this has been very negatively employed and it creates a lot of problems, sometimes supporting the wrong person. The other thing I wanted to mention is that this feeling that the bar is independent and is strong and must display its strength is a power which must be exercised with care. Justice Chandrachud may have heard of it. It's an incident from Allahabad. There's a judge, a former colleague of mine, who demitted office in the Supreme Court, from the Supreme Court. He sentenced a lawyer who was creating a ruckus in the court, to contempt of court, convicted him. And that person died in jail. Not immediately, after some time. I do not think what followed was a sign of strength or independence. There was an FIR filed against the judge for prosecuting him for murder. Now, this is ridiculous. I mean, it's funny, but it's not really funny when the judge has to face it. So, we must understand that the power of the bar must be constrained by limits, and this is again where I say the institution of chambers is very important. It is only in your chamber that you learn that these are things which are not done. If you attend political rallies, you might want to do these things, on the other hand. The bar, not only this bar, but along with the court at Bombay, had Mr. Mukul Rohde was telling me just now that the greatest star in the formation of the Constitution was Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar, because he kept on quoting him in one case to support his proposition. The NJAC case, I think, and even everywhere. Now, this is just an example of how things happen here in Bombay. They seem difficult to comprehend to an outsider, in the sense, you think there is a division between the original side and the Bombay, Western India appellate side. But Bhimrao Ambedkar was not a member of the Bombay Bar Association, formally at least. But there is a record in the minutes, a beautiful leather-bound minute, which Justice Gautam Patel again brought to my notice, that it tells of a felicitation dinner for Dr. Ambedkar, in which over 100 people were invited and elaborately arranged And I'm sure they had a good time. It appears that from then, right from those days till now, there is this sense of excellence, supporting excellence, that has been there in the Bombay bar and which continues to give strength. I do not wish to take much longer. I would only like to add a different aspect of what has been said. These names are all redoubtable, not least for their fortitude, their courage, and their indomitable spirit in the most trying of times. All were persons of character. To be sure, in my experience, there were also some persons who were simply characters. But that only rounds off the experience. I think the judgment of history is the most terrible of all. Time can be a ravaging force, always unforgiving. And it is this that is BBA's greatest achievement. It has survived the judgment of history, and that is no small thing. Thank you very much. Best of luck. Jai Hind.